Hey, welcome back to another edition of Everything Football 62. I'm yours, Jonathan Big Tex Johnson, a.k.a. Uncle Tex, a.k.a. Professor Tex. Before we start up, smash that like button, subscribe to the page, share with a friend, leave some comments below, and we're going to jump right into it. A couple of days ago, I guess it's been about a week now, NFL Network came out with some of their top three defensive players of all time. Ever since Aaron Donald has won the Super Bowl, obviously, and the big contract that he just signed, the most of NFL history, which we've heard that millions and millions of times, which is why your boy always says there is no greatest of all time. As long as time is still going on, somebody's going to be the greater here, the greater there, or whatever, until time is no more or the league is no more. But on that note, so a lot of guys made their decisions and whatnot, but I found the one that stood out with everybody was the fact that I just figured he was going to be different to do that. Was going to be Maurice Jones-Drew and whatnot. Definitely loved him as a back. Very good back, dude. Very good back. Wish he probably could have played a little bit longer and whatnot. And was having a pretty much better year, having if he played as long as Fred Taylor. I don't know, man. I don't know. But that's for another story. So he has ranked at number one is Deion Sanders, Aaron Donald, and then he has LT. Now, his selling points, to try to be selling points, is the most difficult position on defense is cornerback. Well, I would think that the most difficult positions in NFL football is trying to make an NFL football team. All those positions are going to have something of difficulty to them, as far as I'm concerned. No one had played it better than Deion Primetime Sanders, whose swag and big playability at the position is unrivaled, having to play on an island and shut down an entire half of the field every Sunday and doing it successfully makes him the best defensive player, in my opinion. That's fine. Deion had flag, Deion had all that. Deion, best shutdown corner, although they talked about Herb Adderley the same way to an extent without the flag, because there wasn't really no flag in a lot of those players back during that particular time, as we all well know about that, and so on and so forth. Talked about different things. I'm not going to even use him because he was way of a more physical corner when we start talking about guys like Mel Blount and the likes and whatnot. But it's hard for me when we talk about the best defensive player, in my opinion. NFL football is that of a very physical, violent sport. A lot of contact, physicality, and whatnot, especially prior to like that of 2009 when they completely changed the game into kind of 2009, 2010 to what you kind of see in today. Still a very violent game. Now, we laugh when Deion makes statements like he made a business decision coming up to Bo Jackson and all this other type of stuff and whatnot. He made, you got to make a business decision. We all laugh and giggle at that. It's hard for me to give a person that particular title who, when he says that he makes business decisions. There shouldn't be a business decision. It should be the decision to do the business. That's all it is to it. But he said he made a business decision. So it's hard for me to put a player who made a business decision in that. Especially since when you talk about the first 65 some years of the game, this is a physical game. And a lot of your players and those guys that played at a particular time for those first 60 some odd years, it was about physicality, man. Those guys is known for taking heads off, knocking jokers out, the whole 9 yards. It was extremely a physical sport. It's not taking anything from what Deion did, but as a cornerback, if he's playing with a receiver and the receiver ain't really doing much blocking and he's just out there because, well, it's going to be a run play and it ain't going to me, well, what is Deion doing over there out of 4 plays and say they run the ball a couple of times and that's all that wide receiver does, just does that. Then a couple of times he's not doing anything. He's not even in the game. They're just messing around. That's why you talk about wide receivers. If it's not coming to them, guys like Randy Moss and a lot of guys, Terrell Owens, as great as it was, those guys will check out. Those guys will completely check out. That's why you separated cats like Jerry Rice from the pack, the guys that did certain things like that, who played the whole time. Not taking anything from them other guys, but I'm just saying. So the same thing to me applies to that of Deion Sanders and whatnot. When you want to try to put him in that upper echelon, physicality has to be somewhere in there. This is defense we're talking about. Player of the year. He got 2 Super Bowls. Donald falls in behind him, putting up gaudy numbers in every season of his career with facing double and triple teams. It's incredible watching the man work firsthand every Sunday. No doubt in my mind, finest defensive tackle playing. It took some years, but like my first couple of so tackles and whatnot and stuff like that. We talk about Joe Green as that. Joe Green, guys like Warren Sapp. Who's not talked about enough is Alan Page. Tons of other different guys. Who's not talked about also at that particular defensive tackle. And I think I might have did a show on this or talked about this before, was Dallas's Randy White. You go back to Bob Lilly. You go back to guys. We talking about 2 of the guys, right? Especially, and I'm gonna stick with Randy White. You're talking about someone who played the game, who was like a 10-time Pro Bowl, 10-time first team All-Pro, 8, 9 times, years in a row. Now, he never won a Defensive Player of the Year or whatnot, probably came close a few times and whatnot, and somebody coming from basically being an outside stand-up defensive end / linebacker come from out of Maryland, and what he did, he's not talked about a lot. In what he did, go look at his hardware. The only thing that he unfortunately didn't get was that of a Defensive Player of the Year award. But he has a Super Bowl MVP and in almost a decade, between 8 and 10 All-Pro first-team nods. He's not talked about enough. But we're going to keep moving on. And then rounds out Taylor. Taylor changed the game. We already know about that. All you got to do is go to YouTube and look up what he did. And Aaron Donald is on that cusp of the things that he did. The only thing, when you go back and you take a look, and we go over to that of Lawrence Taylor, you talk about 10-time Pro Bowl, 8-time All-Pro first team. Probably about 10, 11 of those because a couple of second teams. MVP in 1 year, defensive MVP, Super Bowl champ, and whatnot. For him to uproot him, for Aaron Donald to uproot him, at least another Super Bowl has to come into play. At least another Super Bowl has to come into play. To me, he has to at least play a decade. And if not another Super Bowl, at least if not a defensive player, another Defensive Player of the Year award, NFL MVP. No other defensive player aside from Alan Page and Lawrence Taylor did that, and those guys played well over a decade. While Donald, it was eight years, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. He's going into his 9th year. Not taking anything. Aaron Donald is like that. He's a talent and everything. But before you start putting him in that upper echelon and whatnot, we've already talked about prime. But go to a player that played almost during the same time he played was Rod Woodson. This is somebody else who doesn't get talked about a lot. When you start talking about that, you're talking about a Hall of Fame, 11-time Pro Bowl, 6-time All-Pro. And in his prime, 5 of those All-Pro nods was at cornerback. Then he switches to free safety at the age of 34 for Baltimore. Right? Goes to 3 Pro Bowls there. And gets a first team, it goes to 3 Pro Bowls there. Then goes to Oakland at age 37 and makes the Pro Bowl and a first team All-Pro at age 37. What else am I missing here? Okay? But he doesn't get enough credit that he should get, in my opinion. Rod Woodson, and I mean Randy White. It's some guys who really don't. But when we start talking about Rod Woodson, people don't realize Rod Woodson had in his younger years was a return guy, punt return and kick return, and had really very nice stats. And he was really good, extremely good as a matter of fact. Speed, not known for a lot of his speed, but he had speed. He didn't have Deion's speed. Deion, different animal. But my 2 corners on the 100th team anniversary, and I'm talking about when I'm getting ready to put out my 22. Straight 22 players, the first 100 plus years of the league, I'm gonna be putting out the 22 who I feel the game against today against anybody now. The guys that I pick in their prime against guys in their prime now and whatnot, and pick up against and play up against them. and whatnot in today's game. Okay, but yeah, Rod Woodson at one corner, Deion at the other corner, because you're not going to trick him. And with Rod was tough. Rod, he was a thumper. He hit you. He had no problem. He didn't make business decisions. That's not taking Deion. That's just the way Deion plays it. My job is to cover. Well, Rod like to thump. And anybody that pretty much knows that. And whatnot, when we start talking about Rod Woodson and whatnot, so, like I say, man, to each his own. But when you start talking about these different guys, you already see that what a lot of these guys is. And one of the other guys said, I think this was Adam Rank or whatever his name is. And again, we didn't even talk about Bruce Smith. Reggie White. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a lot of these other guys know that. Now, Drew Johnson, think he just said that to say that, well, ushering in new, why are we still talking about Taylor? It's easy when you still talk about Taylor. Just go and look at the tape. It's all on YouTube. But as he said, and Taylor, well, he's in the conversation of the greatest player in NFL history. He changed the game forever when he came into the league, and there still hasn't been another player like him since. That's what separates Taylor from the rest of these guys. And he's been gone. He's been out of the league since 1990. Here we going in 30 some odd years, and you'll get some hybrids, but you ain't getting him. Okay, you're not getting him. So I like what MJD said, but like I say, when you talk about your greatest defensive players, those guys gonna be in that front seven, man. Those guys gonna be in the front seven. We didn't even talk about Hipper. We didn't even talk about Ray Lewis. We didn't talk about Ed Reed. So it's plenty of guys that can be in the conversation, but when we're gonna start talking about up in that particular point right there, we're talking about that front seven, man. That's where your top five, probably top 10 gonna be, and then you can sit up there and start throwing a lot of other defensive backs or whatnot, but it's gonna be that front seven, partner. And like I tell you all the time, and the reason why I got it like this here, you can see the stats and you can see the work for itself with these guys and what they did. Now all the hullabaloo behind them and stuff, just the play in itself, the stats and what they accomplished. And this is why you trying to use this so you see, like I say, numbers don't lie and get emotional. People do. And I tell you guys all the time, that's why it's hard to come up with lists like this, because it's constantly evolving. It's constantly going to do that, because just when you think somebody can't do something, somebody else does it. Even as much as I love Lawrence Taylor and whatnot, he's the greatest of all time. Yeah, first 100 years, yeah, give him that. But you keep saying that, but what happens is it's been 30 some odd years, and it's a long time. And it might be a long time before you see another player like him. It might be a long time before you see a player that accomplished what Brady has accomplished and whatnot, which is why people make the GOAT thing. But like I tell you guys all the time, if there's no GOAT, there's no greatest of all time, as long as time is still going on. And like I tell you guys all the time, numbers don't lie and get emotional. People do. You guys have a good one.